Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. You have stepped into a course that is going to change the way that you look at data. Not just how you analyze it, but also how you communicate it. My name is Nivid Desai. I serve as the Program Executive at Writing Studio IIT Gandhinagar. Welcome to Writing for Data Science. This course is at the intersection of analysis and communication. As all of us know, data analysis is not just about coding and models. It is about solving real-world problems. And that is exactly why every single thought that goes into solving those problems needs to be communicated. And not just to one audience, across multiple stakeholders. That is where this course comes in. This course prepares you with the foundations of writing, especially curated for data science. We will discuss audience analysis, critical thinking, logical reasoning, as well as storytelling that is native to data science. So join me on a journey at the intersection of numbers and narratives. I'll see you in class. Namaste, hello and welcome to Writing for Data Science. My name is Nivid Desai and we are on a journey to explore the interesting intersections between numbers and narratives. Today's lecture is about putting all that we have learned in theory into action. One medium that can help us connect our storytelling prowess to real-world practical implementation. And that medium is something that you would use no matter which field you belong to. Whether you are a student, a professional, or a researcher, you would be using this medium across different purposes and across different formats ubiquitously. This medium, of course, is pitching. And we are going to talk about persuasive pitching, the way that we look at storytelling in functional action. As we all know, a good story captures attention. And a persuasive pitch turns that attention into action. Everything that we have learned so far has been optimized towards making our stories as attention-grabbing as possible. Today, we are going to walk that last mile about how to turn attention into action. Like I said, this is a ubiquitous medium. So, whether you are pitching a startup idea, sharing research findings, recommending a policy, or creating a social impact proposal, you need to persuade people with logic, emotion, and credibility. Persuasion is not a monolith. It works across different factors and with different levels of intensity. And in that case, storytelling, when backed by data, does exactly that. It achieves the goal of persuading your audiences from all these different metrics. And we are going to look at the different tools and components that can help us make our pitch persuasive. But what is a persuasive pitch in the beginning? A persuasive pitch is a short, structured presentation that aims to convince an audience to take action. Now, that action could be anything. It could be to invest, to approve, to support, or to join. Any of these actions can be communicated through the medium of a pitch. Once again, just to underline, the point of making a pitch persuasive is that it needs to convince the audience at the very end. That convincing has to be about the action that you want your audience to take. What are the core elements of a persuasive pitch? First, it has a clear message. It cannot be ambiguous. It cannot be confusing. It has to have evidence in the form of data, and just because we are communicating it as a story, it needs to have emotion. that can drive the impact of your persuasion. Having said that, all of this leads towards the last factor, that is a call to action. A call to action is essentially an invitation or an urge that you communicate to your audience to join you and have the action transported to them, anything that is that you want to communicate with your persuasive pitch. We know that stories grab attention and persuasion drives action. So when you combine them, you've got a pitch that makes people listen and say yes. Now that we have understood what a persuasive pitch is and why pitching is so ubiquitous as a medium, let us look at the first key word that we have used in describing the pitch: persuasion. Persuasion, in simpler terms, means convincing. Convincing may look like a one stop solution, I understand. But persuasion is a multifaceted rhetorical technique. It dates all the way back to ancient Greece and to our dear friend Aristotle, whom we invoked when we started learning about storytelling. Just like Aristotle's theory that a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, he has also proposed factors that can enhance persuasion. These three factors, all three are Greek words, need to be aligned to ensure that your pitch is as persuasive as possible. We are going to understand what each of these three Greek words mean, and we are going to look at them with examples of data storytelling. These three words are ethos, pathos, and logos. Let's start with the first one. Ethos means credibility and trust. Your audience must believe in you or your source. In data storytelling, ethos is built through showing credible data sources, for example, government reports, peer-reviewed research, etc. It is also done through clarity of logic and presentation. And lastly, you can build ethos by demonstrating your expertise or personal connection to the issue. Ethos essentially answers the audience's question, why are you talking about this? What do you have to gain? Do you have any authority to talk to us about the topic that you are dealing with? These questions are about credibility and trust, and you need to answer them through all these different factors that we have studied. But let's look at this with an example. According to a 2023 Niti Aayog study, over 70% of rural women still use firewood. As a design student working on clean cooking stoves, I have spent 6 months in Maharashtra villages understanding this challenge. This right here combines two factors of ethos. Number one, it quotes from a legitimate source. It quotes from a credible source, a Niti Aayog study. It is also latest, so the data is fresh and relevant. And towards the end, it talks about the speaker's own personal stake in studying about this topic. And not only their stake, but also the effort that they have put in understanding the issue at its very root. This ensures that the audience is on the same page as far as the credibility of the speaker and their sources are concerned. Let's now do a little reflection before we move on. Think of something that you are passionate about or you know well. How could you show that you have credibility or lived experience? If you were to persuade somebody about your passion, how would you establish your credibility, or how would you use your lived experience to gain credibility? The second element of the Aristotelian trio that I want to talk to you about is pathos. Pathos is about emotional connection. Your audience must feel something. It could be hope, it could be urgency, it could be care, or it could be pride, anything. But your audience must be engaged at an emotional level. In data storytelling, pathos is built through relatable stories, human impact, and local examples and empathy driven framing. We have learned about setting and context precisely to enhance the pathos of a story. We have also learned about analogies, examples, and scenarios which can engage your audience at an emotional level. All of these will ensure that your data does not have to stand on its own. It is backed by human impact so that your audience can relate directly with it. Let's look at an example. Geeta, a 10-year-old in Rajasthan, walks 2 kilometers daily to get clean water. But a 5,000 rupee water harvesting setup can change that permanently. And that right here is an example of pathos. You introduce a human character, you introduce a human story with real stakes involved and also a problem at the heart of their condition. In the end, you lead them to a solution which is cost effective, urgent, and can make a permanent impact. This right here raises an emotional response in your audience that they will relate with and they will remember for a longer period of time. Here's a quick exercise for you to understand this in some detail. Pick any number or statistic related to India. You can look them up online, you can read them from today's newspaper, anything that you feel would be relevant. And now, rewrite it as a short human story for about 2 lines that stirs some feeling. That data point would be related to a certain time, a certain place, and a certain people. Can you pick out one example or just imagine one example of what story would be communicated from that one data point? Try to make it as emotionally stirring as possible so your audience is engaged through pathos. The third pillar of the Aristotelian trio that I want to talk to you about is logos. Logos, as the name suggests, is based on logic and data. Your audience must see that your pitch makes sense logically. In data storytelling, Logos is built through statistics and evidence, clear problem solution framing, and use of visuals like charts, comparison, and before after data comparison. All of this builds the logical side of your pitch, the logical side of your persuasion. This ensures that your pitch is credible, emotional, and also backed by real time data. For example, here is an example for Logos. This solar device costs 1,200 rupees and lasts 3 years. That's just 1 rupee a day for clean light in homes that used to burn kerosene. This right here is a logic detail. It's a data point. However, it is communicated in a persuasive manner. The framing of the data point is in the form of a story because it gives a clear problem solution framing and it helps the reader understand what this investment can achieve in the form of impact. So I must reiterate that none of these three pillars of the Aristotelian trio can stand on their own and make a pitch effective. They all need to work in synergy with each other, and they all need to be augmented towards convincing, towards persuasion, towards storytelling. So none of them can walk away with just reporting the data. They need to have an innate sense of characterization, an innate sense of storytelling that we have already learned throughout this module. You have already learned how to make characters, how to build scenarios, how to give analogies, and many more tactics that can be enhanced and sharpened through this tool of persuasion. Our final reflection before we move on to the next topic. What is one data point that you could use to prove your solution works? Think of a number, think of a percentage, or cost saving measure. Any of these can work as a data point. It just does not need to be a statistic. It can be anything related to logic and data. So think of one data point that will help you achieve your goal of convincing your audience for a solution. Now that we have understood the components of persuasion, let me also share with you a structure that can help you guide your formulation of pitch. We have known what all these three components of persuasion do. However, how would you see them in a practical, implementable, replicable structure? I call this the PIE, problem, insight, and effect structure. A good pitch blends ethos, that is who you are, pathos, as in why it matters, and logos, as in how it works. The P stands for problem. It helps you use data to frame a real, relatable issue. Once that is achieved, you move on to I, insight. You share your solution with a human story or example. And then you end with E, that is effect or call to action. You show the impact and ask clearly for what is needed out of your audience. Support, funding, partnership, anything that you need out of your audience can be the closing remark of your pitch. These three components ensure that all the factors from ethos, pathos, and logos are applied in a practical working format of your pitch. Let's look at a full-scale example of how would you look at PIE in action. Let's take an EdTech pitch for first-generation students. What could the problem be? The problem statement, I've devised something like this. Over 30 lakh students in India are first-generation college goers, often struggling without mentoring or clarity. This is a real problem. It is a clear problem, something that is backed by evidence. What could the insight be? The solution that you are presenting. We built My Path, a mobile dashboard that helps students track their attendance, scholarships, and connect with local mentors. And in the end, you can end this with the effect. In our pilot, 80% of users improved academic performance. With 5 lakh rupees in support, we can scale to 10 colleges across Odisha. This right here is a logos point that also couples as a call to action. So the impact is clear, the solution is clear, and the problem is also clear. Of course, this is a rough structure. There still needs one human story that can be added to this, but I just wanted to show you what this structure can look like in practice. So now that I have shown you this, would you like to do an exercise for yourself? You can pick a topic that is close to you. I've given you some suggestions: education, health, climate, gender. Write one sentence each for problem, insight, and effect, using data as well as human focus. This will help you understand that ethos, pathos, and logos, what we just studied, are not just esoteric ideas. You can boil them down to proper structures that can help you access your pitching to the best possible quality. So, pick a field of your choice and turn that into a PIE structure. I hope that was a fun little exercise for you to understand how pitching outlines work. If you found that to be a grounding exercise, let me now share with you some insight that can help you make an effective pitch. First of all, you can use simple yet strong words. In the past, we have talked about load bearing words in one of our clarity, conciseness, and precision lectures. So, that clarity, that conciseness, that precision also finds its way back to today's module. Then, you show evidence, but just enough evidence. For each point that you are proving, one or at max two pieces of evidence can suffice. My advice to you would be mix up the nature of evidences. Try to pick a statistic coupled with a human story so that your point should be proven from multiple different angles. It is not just that the numbers are saying so, but also the people are saying so. And that brings me to the third point. Add emotional stories or quotes, something that can help the audience connect at a relatable, human, empathetic level. In the end, towards the final few sentences of your pitch, the last few moments of your speaking, finish with a call to action. What do you want the audience to do? That should be the final words being uttered from your point. At the end of this lecture, I would like to reiterate the vision of why pitching matters. Every pitch is a story in motion. You are not just sharing data, you're shaping decisions. The most persuasive pitches connect the head, heart, and hand, as in data, emotion, and action. So, whether you are a student, an innovator, or a citizen, your ideas deserve to be heard. Now that you know what the importance of pitching is, you can use data to not just inform, but to influence, to inspire, and to initiate change. Don't just pitch the facts, pitch the future that you want to build. That was it from my side for this lecture. We looked at persuasive pitching in depth. We learned 3 new words, Greek words at that: ethos, pathos, and logos. We also saw how to turn them into a workable structure. And we did some fun exercises along the way that helped us ground our theoretical knowledge into practical, implementable steps. We will do a recap of all that we have studied. We will underline some important aspects of storytelling with data. And we will see at large, what did we study? How did we develop our understanding about writing for data science? All the best. Stay curious. Keep learning. I will see you in the next class. Until then, thank you so much for joining me today. Namaskar.